to another edition of our Motorcycling Australia Women's Commission Women in Motorcycling interviews. I'm Jemma Wilson, I'm part of the committee, and today we have Jayne White with us. Jayne has done 2 Simpson Desert Crossings with a group of ladies and then done a solo trip back. So we're going to hear all about her involvement in that today and also her other involvement in the sport. So welcome, Jayne.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. So the Simpson Desert Crossing, the ride for Dolly, can you tell me a little bit about your involvement the last 2 years in that?
So I got involved very close to the start of the last years. Just saw it on Facebook and I'd been thinking about doing the Simpson for a while. And so I messaged Stuart, who was the primary organiser, and there was a space available. So we had a bit of a discussion. Long story short, I needed to find a bike pretty quickly because I didn't have one that was suitable. So I said to Stuart, I'll go and talk to my boss if I can get time off, see if I can find a bike. I'll let you know tomorrow night. So it was really that quick, and I literally went looking for a bike that evening and found one in Melbourne that night. Exactly what I wanted. So when that happened, I went, this is meant to be. So yeah, made that happen. I bought that the next day.
Yeah. I love ladies who are spontaneous with motorcycling and just go, you know what, I'm going to do that and rock up and do it. So well done to you.
Sight unseen. I've never in my life bought a bike sight unseen. I would never recommend it. But it was a good decision in the end. Okay,
and so how many ladies were on the 2019 tour? Do you remember?
We had 12 the first year. It was a full contingent that year, and it was it was quite surreal actually. I mean, I've been riding motorbikes for a long time, and there aren't that many women around doing it, especially dirt. So I've never really sat in a car with a bunch of women all talking about motorbikes. It's usually blokes doing that. It was really weird, I've got to tell you.
Yeah,
driving to Birdsville, I had Ricky and Kate in the car with me because I took them up with their bikes in the trailer. And I just kept pinching myself going, am I in some sort of weird time warp? Because these girls are just going on about their BMWs and the way they set their bikes up. And I'm looking and I'm going, what's going on here? This is just a bit weird. It was very cool, actually. But yeah, great bunch of girls. We had a great time.
Fantastic. It's a different environment, isn't it? The all ladies environment. It's very special.
Very cool. Yeah, it's really probably the first time I've actually ever been on something that was all girls. It's always been, I've usually been the girl.
Yeah.
On the rides with all the blokes. Yeah. Being paranoid about holding them up.
And how many girls were on the 2020 tour? So a couple less?
We only had 8 that year. I think COVID hurt us a bit because I think we had 2 in Melbourne that couldn't get out of Melbourne. And I think generally we were just a little down because of COVID. Everybody was a bit nervous. And we really didn't know it was going to go ahead because it got delayed 3 months. And even 2 weeks before, I was like, you know what, if we have an outbreak in Adelaide, they'll can it. Mm-hmm. So we weren't, it was really hard to get excited this year because we didn't really know if it was going to happen. So it was like when we were driving.
Yeah. So the amount of money that was raised though for Dolly's stream, so I read it was 23,000 in 2019, and it was still 18,000 for this year with all of the COVID fuss and people not being able to get excited and stuff like that. So that's a pretty amazing response still for the fundraising side of things.
It was amazing effort. I think Donna did outstanding with the money she raised. She raised a lot of money. It's really cool, and it's just really good to see the money going to such a worthwhile cause, you know, with the bullying and harassment promotion, you know, to try and get awareness out there about it, to try and stop it. I'm a school teacher, so I see it every day. The bullying and the harassment every day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's great that it's going that way.
It is, yeah, it's such a cool thing, all the ladies getting together and doing something that's very inspiring and also, yeah, raising money for a great cause. So where does the ride start and end?
Okay, so we all meet in Birdsville on either the Thursday or the Friday before we leave on the Saturday. So we all sort of make our own way to Birdsville from all over the country. I always thought it'd be really cool if we could film it and have all the, like one of those aeroplane movies where everybody turns up at the airport and you film them leaving home. But yeah, it'd be a really cool movie. We all sort of meet in Birdsville on Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, and then Friday we have a play day out at Big Red, which is really good fun. So we all go out to Big Red and we have a bit of a play on the sand, get people accustomed to the sand, those that don't ride it normally. And then both years I led us in about 10 or 15 kilometres and then back out again as a bit of a taster for the girls, so they can see what they're up against.
Get rid of the nerves and get to know the other riders and stuff before you set off?
Sorry?
Get rid of the nerves and get to know the other riders a little bit before you set off.
The idea of that from stewards is that way they go to bed Friday night not worrying too much. They feel a bit more confident then, because once you've ridden in a little bit, it doesn't change that much. So yeah, it was good.
Cool. And where do you finish up?
We end up in Mount Dare at the end. So we take 4 days to get across. We do about 130 to 150 kilometres a day, depending on the terrain. Now the middle part, if anybody's done the Simpson, the middle part they call the washing machine is a little more difficult. It's quite slow, very twisty, very up and down, a bit harder to ride. So that's a bit of a slower day that day. Probably don't do as many kilometres on that day. But yeah, so we have 3 nights in the Simpson and then we end up in Mount Dare, which is kind of cool.
All right, and it's supported and you camp along the way, is that right?
Yeah, we camp along the way. We had about, I think we had 6 vehicles with us the first year. One of the things about when women do something is the husbands tend to come along. So we had several vehicles that had husbands driving, which is good. Stuart loved it because he had all of his stuff spread over all the vehicles, all the fuel and everything. This year, I think we had 4 vehicles, I think. So it wasn't quite so many, but we didn't need them. So yeah, so 4 vehicles. They carry all of the tents and food and sleeping gear and chairs and that sort of stuff. So and fuel, that's a big one, fuel. But I carried all my stuff. I carried everything except for the food. Okay,
fantastic. And so then at the end, did you spend the night with all the girls and then spin around and pin it back? Is that what happened?
Yeah. So when I first signed up for it, in the back of my mind for a while, I'd been planning and wanting to do a solo crossing of the Simpson. It was one of my bucket list things. And I'd wanted to try and do it in one day. I thought I could. A lot of people tell me I couldn't, as is per normal. So I'd actually already done the border track. I don't know if you know the border track at all in South Australia. I've done that several times in like 5 hours down and back as a bit of a taster. So I'd already done that, prepare myself for the Simpson. So my plan was to come back the first year. So the first year I didn't actually make it. I failed. So I got stopped.
Oh, you had an attempt though?
Yeah, I attempted it the first year, but didn't make it. So it was 40 to 42 degrees on the way across the first year. But the day I was going to come back, it was predicted to be 42 degrees. So I left it. So yeah, stayed the night with the girls in Mount Dare, got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to come back. And my logic for getting up at 4 o'clock was it was going to be a really hot day, and I thought I'll try and get a couple of hours in the dark done. And then the really bad bit, which is between the start of the French line or the Rig Road to Poplar Corner, I could get that done by about 10 o'clock before it got too hot. But about 30 k's from Perney Bore, I got a flat tyre, which normally would not be an issue because I carry tubes. But the bike only did this. I went over a sandy and I had such a little wobble in the back end, and I thought that didn't match the terrain, so I might just stop and have a bit of a look at the bike. So I stopped, and the bike looked perfect. Pushed on the back wheel and it was flat. Oh, well, that's okay, no problem. I've got tubes, I'll change it. So I started pulling it apart, and when I pulled it apart, I discovered that it had obviously been flat for a long time because the tube had melted.
Oh no.
And I literally scraped the tube out and threw it on the ground. And then I realised that the tyre was buggered. The rear tyre was, all the walls of the tyre buggered. So at that point I thought, I'm in a bit of strife here because I'm partway in the Simpson and I've got potentially a wrecked rear tyre. I put my spare tube in, heavy duty rear tube, but I wasn't sure it was going to stay up. So I made the decision to not proceed and head back. My daughter was tracking all this on my GoPro on my little tracker I had on my shoulder, so she thought it was pretty. She wondered what I was doing, but I decided to head back, and on the way back, I realised that I might not make it back to Mount Dare before they leave Mount Dare, which meant I would have been behind them with a bad tyre on a rocky road, which is not a great scenario. So I had left at Dalhousie Springs ahead of Oodnadatta. So and I trying to beat the rest of the crew to Oodnadatta.
Yeah.
So so I failed the first year.
Okay. Well, it's very cool that you went back and tried again and made it happen, though. That's fantastic. It makes this story even better.
Yeah, it was interesting because it was really difficult actually mentally like this year. Like even Stuart said to me one day, he said to me, "You're stressing over last year, aren't you?" And I went, "Yeah, I am." I said, "It's very difficult mentally to drive right out of Mount Dare. It was very hard to do. I have to say, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done was to ride out of Mount Dare."
And did you leave in the dark again, or was it not as warm?
It wasn't as hot. It was about 36 degrees the day when I went across, and I just left it. I got up at normal time. I had a good sleep. I left at 7:42 in the morning. So the girls were all up, chucked some fuel on the bike, and just headed off. So it was a tough gig. I tell you, I had a few tears when I left. It wasn't easy to do. Yeah, it wasn't. It was tough. Once I got out there, I was as good as gold. But just that riding out of Mount Dare was a tough thing to do. I found it tough. Yeah.
Well done.
So, yeah. So that was the plan. So yeah. So the first year I failed, and then that was why I wanted to have a go at the second year. So it was a bit more of a goal then. But yeah, different tyres this year. I mean, I've been riding bikes for a long time, and I've never ever had a flat tyre where the tyre didn't come off the rim. Have you?
Had a flat tyre where the tyre didn't come off the rim. Well,
where the bead didn't break.
So I have always, ever since I can remember, run mooses where you don't get flats. So and now I run tubes, but I haven't really been getting flats. So I don't know.
You run tubeless. You run tubeless, do you?
Well, I like moose tubes, so the solid rubber tube.
Oh,
yeah.
You still run mooses now?
Well, now I run normal tubes, but I just coach and don't really hit things, and I don't get flats. So I haven't had a flat in years and years and years and years. Yeah.
I've had lots of flats over the years in different situations because I run very low tyre pressures normally, and I don't have a problem changing them. But I've always found that when you get a flat, the tyre comes off the rim.
Yeah, like pops off.
This one pops off the bead. This one didn't. It's still on the bead. So I changed brand of tyre for this trip this year. I won't mention what brand I used last year, but this year I used D606s, and they're fabulous.
And actually, that's the question I had. Were you girls using sand tyres or just normal
No. Normal tyres.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, just normal tyres. Yeah, nothing special. I just run, because I'm from South Australia and we ride in sand most of the time over here. It's a lot of sand here. So I run very low tyre pressures, like 6 to 8 pounds in my tyres, generally speaking. So I ran a bit more on the Simpson because I didn't want to get another flat. But
yeah. And so with your 9 hours and 26 minutes back, have you looked into any of the stats? How many other people have done solo non-stop trips or times or anything like that?
We don't think anybody's done it solo, unsupported, carrying everything in that time.
Okay, well that is really, really, really extra congratulations. Well done to you, Jane.
Yeah, we can't find any records of it. They say there's people that have done it in 8 hours, but they had fuel dumps and there was more than one bike and whatever. But Stuart attempted to do it a week after me. Took him 11 hours and 15 minutes on a 990 KTM.
Yeah.
But he had fuel dumps. So
okay, so he wasn't carrying it.
He wasn't carrying all the gear like I was. So because my bike was I could have camped had I wanted to. Yes. But I told my daughter, because my daughter was watching me on my tracker. She was watching the track. I said to her, if I get tired, I will stop somewhere and camp, and then I'll send you the little code on the tracker to say I'm camping.
Yeah.
So you're not
laying on the side of the road, or the track.
Yeah. So I had full gear to camp, food, tent, sleeping bag, everything. So I could have easily camped, even a chair, easily camped.
Okay. But, and did you? How long do you think you stopped along the way, to eat and put fuel on your bike and toilet stop and stuff like that? If you added up.
Not long. I drank 6.5. I drank 6 litres of water in the 9 hours. Yep. So I did stop a lot to go to the bathroom. That was the only reason I stopped. I was going to stop for lunch. In fact, I actually got off the bike to have lunch, and I had this cookie that was like not one of those cookies, but a cookie that it was a high energy food, like a whole meal. And I ate half of that, and then went, "Why am I stopping?" And I just kept riding. So I just kept going. So I didn't really stop much at all. Probably 6 times to go to the bathroom, and that's about it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to go. I wasn't actually trying to go fast. I just got in a rhythm, and I was just trying to minimise the impact on the bike, minimise the impact on my body, try and keep the centre of mass moving as flat as I possibly could.
Yeah.
Up through the bumps. So, and I just got in a rhythm and just didn't stop.
And just kept going for 9.5 hours.
I did. I got to. Must admit, I got to admit though, the washing machine felt like it was going on forever. I was really happy when that finished. Have you been in the Simpson before?
I haven't, no.
No, there's a bit in the middle which is just west of Pony Ball, what they call the washing machine. It's just relentless, turning left and right and up and down. Even in between the sand hills, it just goes on forever. You can't it's twisty enough that it's really hard to carry enough speed to get on top of the sand properly.
Yeah.
So it can be really hard on, what it's like riding in sand. If your speed gets too low, it gets harder. So because it's so tight and twisty and up and down, it's very hard to carry a lot of speed through there. So that's the hardest bit. I was very glad when that ended. But when I got to the end, when I got to the salt pan, but then there's like a 20k salt pan that you run down, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So you go, I can relax for a minute. Yeah, I got to that point in 6 hours and 50 minutes, I think. I hit 7 hours and 350 kilometres as I was riding up the Salt Lake. Exactly, they ticked over at the same time, 7 hours and 350 k's as I'm going up the Salt Lake. And I was doing the maths in my head going, because that's what you do when you ride motorbikes, you do maths.
I do a lot of math when I ride too, and I'm not good at it, so it takes me a long time.
Yeah, well, I like maths. So I was actually doing the maths in my head going, wait, I'm only 2.5 hours from Birdsville. I kept going, I thought I'd made a mistake. I kept checking the numbers and going, not 2.5 hours from Birdsville. I can get here in under 9.5 hours. So I went, I'm not stopping for that.
No,
so
definitely.
I've got to admit, I turned it a little tiny bit and went a little bit quicker.
Yeah. And so what's the full Ks?
My speedo showed 500.9 kilometres.
Okay. Cool.
But most people say it's between 500 and 530. Most people say it's 550, but I think that allows for motorbikes. You can go straighter.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this quite so much like you do.
And over 500 Ks, that would take a few Ks off. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, and I must admit, on the way over, I looked at every sand hill that I could go straight over, and when I came back, I went straight over it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the sand hills are really high, and the cars go round them. So there's like a boys on the motorbike, you just roll straight over. So, over it. So,
that's very cool.
So I had a couple of moments coming back. When we did the crossing across. This is the Simpson Desert for you. On the Monday, the third day, it was 42 degrees coming across with the girls.
Yeah.
On the last day, the day we drove into Mount Dare, it was the Tuesday. We left the campsite and I said, we're going to ride into rain. There was rain coming. We sat in Dalhousie Springs, which is this magnificent hot water pond at Dalhousie Springs. We sat in that in the rain, which is very cool. And then when we left there on the bikes, we got hailed on.
Oh, wow.
It was just bizarre to go from 40 degrees the day before to being hailed on in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
And it was just and we were drenched because we were dressed for 40 degrees.
Yeah.
So we were all drenched to the skin. And then half an hour later, we're all dry again. So that shower went through Dalhousie. So when I came back the next day, all the roads were wet there.
Yeah, which makes sand makes sand a bit easier because you don't sink so much. Was it easier?
No, this is Dalhousie Springs. It's clay.
Oh, okay, opposite.
The opposite of that. So the 80 k's from Mount Dare to Dalhousie is rocks like this. It's horrible. just nasty rocks. When you get to Dalhousie, it turns to clay.
Mm.
So that road was wet. So when I came into Dalhousie, I've got a full load on. I got 40 litres of fuel on my gear. I got into a bit of a slide at one point coming into Dalhousie, and she was sideways, and I'm thinking, this is not good. I'm going to have a bit of a get off here. I caught it, but it was really slippery there, and I had a bit of trouble stopping to turn right in Dalhousie because the ground was so wet. And then on the other side of Dalhousie, it was the same. It was really slippery.
So did you have any sacks on the solo run, or?
No. So that was, and a couple of close calls there, and then about 80 k's, about 40 k's past Dalhousie at a big sandy creek bed, I got a tank slapper up.
Yeah.
And she started to walk on me, and because I've got high fuel in the back tank, it's quite high up. I could feel it working me around, and just for a minute there, I went, "Yeah, I'm going to fall down here." Yeah. Just had that, you have that moment, you think, "Oh, I'm in strife here." You would have had that. You must have had.
Yeah.
But just for that minute, I thought, "Oh, yeah," and then I caught it. I was like, "Well, that was it."
That's a phenomenal effort, though, to do 500 kilometres and not have any drops, which is probably a good thing with all the extra kilos you have on your bike. To do it, be a bitch picking it back up. But
it wasn't too bad. That was I think it was only because I had the 10 litres sitting on the top of the pack rack. The bike, there's a bit of weight sitting up there. It's probably not quite 10 litres, but it's 9.5 kilos sitting quite high up.
Yeah.
But as soon as I got to Perney Ball, or start of the Rig Road, where the proper sandhills start, I took all that fuel out of that tank and put it in the front tank.
Would have made life easier, yeah.
Yeah, so that put a bit more weight over the front, and that was before we went into the sand. So that was always my plan. As soon as the main tank could take the fuel out the back, I stuck all that fuel in the front. Yep. All about, I think, about half a litre. So,
cool.
So the bike was better then. It was a lot better. But,
yeah. All right, and so the Ride for Dolly's happening again in 2021?
Yes, it is.
Yes. And is 12 sort of the number that they're looking for each time?
I think so. We look for 12. I reckon I'm going to have a chat with Stuart. If we get the interest, I reckon we could take a few more. But we'll see what the interest is this year. I know that a whole bunch of us that have done it already want to do it again. I want to go again. Heidi wants to go again. I'm pretty sure Kim wants to go again. I'm pretty sure Ricky wants to go again. So I think there's going to be a whole bunch of us that are going to do it again. So just because it was really good fun.
Yeah, already those numbers. And that's the thing with all things motorcycling, especially with women, because I run a lot of ladies-only events, and it was, slow going in the start because people just don't know what it is and don't have the confidence. They think, oh, it's something I'd like to do, but, I'm probably not good enough. But then someone finally does it, and then they talk to their friends who talk to their friends, and they say, no, it's for you. You can go do it. It's perfect. And then, and now it's selling out. But it just takes a little bit longer, I think, to get the girls confident enough to enter. So
I've been wanting to get over. I've been wanting to get over to one of your events. I will one day.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Yeah.
When is that your dog?
Yes.
My dog's running around as well.
Is that time of the afternoon where they want to go running and she's trying to entice me?
That's exactly what mine's doing. As soon as I get a chance, I'm going to get over to one of your events.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. I've got a friend also who runs Cairns to Cape tours, and there's a all ladies Cairns to Cape tour happening in 2022 in September. And I did an almost all ladies, so husbands and dads and stuff could come last year, and it was just amazing. It's a 7-day or 6-day ride. Just phenomenal. It was the best time I've ever had on a bike.
2022
countries. Yeah.
I could be keen on that.
Yeah, mix it up. Do the Simpson and that.
Yeah, I'm keeping the bike, so
yeah.
I like the bike so much. I'm keeping that. So
cool. And what bike is it? Sorry, I haven't asked that question.
DRZ 400.
Okay, yeah, and that's what they ride up to the Cape as well. So
yeah, I've been wanting one of those for ages, since I actually rode one for the first time in the Simpson Desert when I was in there with a friend. And I was amazed by it. I mean, I ride a KTM 450 6-day normally, my main ride bike, but the DRZ is just such a great all-round bike.
Yeah, they chug, don't they? And those ones up to the Cape get drowned on a daily basis, and they just keep going and going and going. No bike would do that.
For that ride up there, can I take my bike or do I have to ride theirs?
No, you can take yours if you want. Yep.
Because I'd rather ride my bike. Probably go set up.
Too easy. Oh, we might move on to the 7 questions that I ask all of you wonderful ladies that I interview here. So the first one is, what was the driving force behind you becoming involved in motorcycling?
Just family. My Uncle Bryce was probably the person that taught me to ride when I was really young, when I was about 6. He actually won the 24-hour trial in 1961. And he was a bike rider, so he got basically, through my dad, got us involved in bikes and taught me to ride basically.
Actually, that's something we haven't really talked about, is your history, because there's been so much Simpson Desert goodness to talk about. So how long have you been riding for?
Started when I was about 6.
Yeah.
And that bike was in the 60s, because I'm really, really old. That bike was a bike that Uncle Bryce built for me. So it was made out of, I think it was made out of a step through. Mini bikes didn't really exist in those days, apart from those Deltec things, Deltec or something. So he made that bike for me to ride basically, and later on my little brother out of a scooter. So yeah, so I learned to ride on that, and then graduated up through a whole bunch of bikes over the years.
Okay, and you've sorry. I was saying you've ridden the whole time. Like a lot of the ladies that I speak to have a break in the middle, but you've just been consistently riding.
No, I had a break in the middle when my daughter was born, so I didn't ride for about 10 years in the middle when my daughter was little. But when my daughter got to about 10, she wanted me to I got back into bikes again anyway, but I actually tried hang gliding and found that really boring and decided to buy a motorbike again. But my daughter wanted me to get involved more than anything. She said, get a bike, Mum. And the only reason she wanted to do it was because she wanted to go to motocross events because there were boys there.
With no shirts on.
Yeah. Sorry?
Yeah, boys with no shirts on.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So she used to film things at the motocrosses back in '96, and she would film and it'd be like, oh, there's a motorbike, oh, there's a cute boy. And she literally got videos of her doing that.
Oh, fantastic. All right, what
I did have a bit of a break, but
yeah.
But
what kind of challenge? Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry. Lila, sit. She's getting a bit carried away too. What kind of challenges did you face as a woman, and how did you overcome this?
The biggest challenge for me was when I got back into it. I started riding again. I ended up joining a club called AMTRA, Australian Trail Riders Motorcycle Association or something like that. And that was just a club with all blokes and there were no other women in it. And they did kind of rides where they'd go out as a group and do whatever. We just went all sorts of different places. And the biggest worry for me was I didn't want to hold them up. I was always paranoid, especially in the early stages, that they'd be like, oh, the woman's broken down again, now we have to help her. Or the woman's got a flat tyre and she's holding us up. Or that was always my biggest worry. So I probably overcompensated a bit. And basically, if I needed new tyres on my bike, I fitted it myself.
Yeah.
I knew how to do it. So if I got a flat tyre, I didn't have to have any help. I always carried tools and spares. So I probably went over the top a bit with the way I prepared for everything to make sure that I didn't hold anybody up. So that was probably for me, that was difficult, but ended up being a godsend because I ended up probably better at it than I would have had I not done that.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah, yeah, overcome it and made it a positive rather than a negative. That's cool, yeah.
It did, yeah. So,
what's the greatest gift that the sport has given you?
I'll probably just friends and time with friends and stuff. You can't really beat it. Like it's go away for the weekend. I'm not someone that wants to go away and sit around and do nothing. I want to go. If I'm going to go away, I want to do something. So bike riding is great. You get to go and do something for the day and then sit around the fire that night telling tall stories about how awesome you were. You know? That's what happens, of course, as you know.
Perfect.
So, just great social times, I think.
It really is, yes. And what do you love most about our sport?
The challenge never ends. It just never ends. There's always something new to learn and something to get better at, or whatever that may be. You can challenge yourself at whatever level you're at. You can just challenge yourself that little bit. I've been writing a long time, and I still love it. I would write every day if I could, like I did when I was a kid. So the challenge never ends. I'm always learning something new and trying to improve my skills. It's not easy to do as you get older because you quickly.
Well, it sounds like you're still setting yourself challenges. So
well, yeah, definitely doing that. But yeah, biggest challenge is the legs. Don't like the standing up. Like at Wombi, when we raced at Wombi, my legs did not like that.
Yeah,
that was tough. What's
that?
that?
Yeah, that was a tough one though. What life skills have you developed as a result of motorcycling?
I can fix things now. Because I do all my own maintenance. You have to when you've got dirt bikes, as you know. You're always cleaning air cleaners and changing oil and all that sort of stuff. So you learn to fix things. So I feel like I can fix just about anything now. I wouldn't pull an engine apart, but when it comes to general maintenance, I can pretty much fix everything. So I think it gives you confidence to do other stuff.
Definitely.
So probably that.
Cool. I do enjoy this question. So if you could write a letter to your 16-year-old self, what would it say?
The 3 incidences where I snapped my knees. don't do them. The 3 incidents where I've done a knee. I've done 3 ACLs over the years. I would have said, just don't do those things. What would I say to myself? I just probably just tell myself that you're still going to be riding when you're older and not to worry about it. Yeah. I used to worry a lot when I was young that I'd get badly hurt and wouldn't be able to ride. I'm really grateful and I feel very fortunate that I'm the age I am and still able to ride reasonably well. I think I'm really lucky in that way, in that regard. To do that. Because a lot of people can't. I see lots of people my age that can't ride anymore.
Yeah. Taken out of it.
Yeah, so I think, just probably that really.
Okay. That's a good one. And our last question is, what is the most popular question that you get asked about motorcycling?
Everybody wants to know how to do wheel stands. Everybody wants to know how to do wheel stands. Like, it's really hard to teach people to do wheel stands because there's a risk involved. So I teach a lot of people to ride. So I have a property that I bought for riding bikes on, which has motocross track and enduro cross track and a lot of single track and paddocks. And my friends go there, we ride. I'm teaching a couple of girls at the moment. They all want a simple answer, and there isn't one. It's just bike time.
Yeah.
The only way to get faster is bike time.
Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, the big one everybody wants to know do wheel stands.
It's funny you mentioned that because at my coaching events, it's the thing that I enjoy coaching the most because like women, they want to be able to do it and they think that like it's impossible, you've got to be way confident and stuff, but there is a little knack to it. And by the end of, you might have 25 women and by the end of a 20-minute session on wheel stands, 20 of them will be getting their front wheel off the ground safely. One usually flips it, and the last camper, it was me when I was demoing, but...
Did you flip lights? Did you demoing? Did you really?
Yeah, I just looped it out in front of all the girls.
That's fabulous.
And kids, so I took one for the team.
You got to show them what not to do sometimes. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely do have those moments when I'm coaching.
Well, definitely do that myself. But yeah, getting your foot over the brake is, you've got to really get on that. There's people that do it, that ride down roads and they do this all the time.
Yeah, that's a lot of control. So much control.
That's astonishing. I haven't got to that point yet. Can you do that?
No, I'm not a great modeler. It's just, and it is time. Like it's easy to teach someone to lift their front wheel off the ground and put it back down, but then they have to put in the hours and hours and hours to keep it there.
Yes. Yeah, that's what takes time. I can teach people to pop it up. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
The clutch and the body and whatnot. But
and finding where that point is by going backwards a few times.
Yes, I have done that many, many, many times. Gone over the butt backwards, quite often in front of people, which is also quite embarrassing as well. One day I was riding in the high country, and I came down out of the high country with a couple of blokes, friends of mine, and I pulled up out in front of a cafe just on a T-junction, and I stopped, and I forgot to put my foot down. And I fell over in the middle of an intersection in front of a whole bunch of people. I was laughing before I hit the ground, but it was a little embarrassing, really. But we do these dumb things occasionally.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I don't know what I was thinking. Just stopped and put my foot down and fell over. That was a severe blonde moment, that was. But yeah, it happens occasionally.
Alrighty. Well, I am so thankful. This was an amazing conversation. I've learned so much about the ride for Dolly, which is great, but also your solo trek back. It's been a real eye-opener, and there's a lot of questions I've had about the Simpson Desert for a little while, and you've answered a few of them, so that's really cool. And love your answers to those 7 questions. I think that after we've done, a year or so of these, we need to just get answers from all the different girls and make it into a compilation, because there's so many great answers that come from you women, which is wonderful. So thank you very much.
Oh, you should come next year.
Yeah, actually, I think Ricky invited me for this year one, but then of course COVID and things and blah 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 blah. I'm actually going to do a Darwin to Broome next year with Elwood Adventures. My best mate started a tour company. So that'll be my tour for that year. Cape again 2022. So we'll see what's happening in 2023.
What bike are you going to ride?
I'm actually going to ride the Husqvarna 701 for the 10 days.
Oh.
Yeah, which will be really cool.
Nice.
And I took my 350, my Husky 350 to the Cape last time. And I was thinking of trying to get a 501 for the next trip, just to mix it up a bit.
Okay. And the 350 did that okay?
Yeah, beautifully. It was a lot of fun. So much fun.
Not a very comfortable seat on those though.
No, but I mean, I've raced 6 days. I've done 7 6 days. I'm used to hard seats on long rides. So.
Yeah. So why are you not gearing up to do Dakar or something like that?
Look, I got asked that question a couple of weeks ago, and my answer was, if someone wants to give me $100,000, I'll do Dakar. And that's pretty much
cool.
it. I had to pull the pin on racing because, I mean, I didn't earn money, and the passion, well, not the passion was there, but not the love for it. I'd been there, I'd done that. So I got to a point where, I mean, I didn't super love it and I wasn't earning money. So it was time to move on. And now I love what I do, running my events. They're so much fun. But I'm definitely still open to trying new things in the sport, but something like Dakar is obviously so much money. So, yeah.
It's different. Yeah, it's out of the reality of most of us.
Yeah, it's not spare change, that's for sure.
No, so I'd like to do Think one day as well, but I think I may have left it too late now.
Oh no, I think you're the lady for the job.
Yeah, I think my knees would cope very well because I'd want to go fast.
Yeah.
You've got to get fit for that stuff, and at my age now, I find getting fit very difficult.
Okay, and Think is just a lot of riding in the dust too.
Yeah, which is not really a lot of fun.
No.
I might just stick with the Simpson because there's actually no dust in the Simpson.
Yeah.
Because it's sand. So, yeah, you should come next year. It'd be really cool if you did.
All right, I'll keep an eye out when the dates pop up.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks very much, Jayne.
All right.
Good luck with everything.
I'm going to try and get to one of your events.
Bye-bye. Yeah, that sounds very good. Thank you.